Вітання.
Hello, dear participants of today's meeting. The food crisis of the communities is still taking the leading place for the communication of the Ministry of Regional Development and the local self-governance. This is the second discussion initiated by the Ministry of Regional Development, and we will now focus on the local economic development. Let us keep in touch with the relevant issues of local self-governance, and we will have the program of the USAID HOVERLA, which would help us and assist. The technical support is provided by the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. My name is Nadia Petroniak. My colleague is Vadim Karpiak. During the next 2 hours, we're working together with you. So let us begin with the introduction speeches, because it becomes our tradition, a nice tradition. Vyacheslav Nehoda, Deputy Minister of the Development of Communities and Territories of Ukraine. Vyacheslav, please, the floor is yours. Yes, hello, dear friends and colleagues. I, first of all, would like to welcome you at today's event. It was just told this is the second event. Yes, within this project, this is the second one, but we are working with other projects. So the ministry, together with our partners, the Ministry of Economy, the Ministry of Agrarian Policy, we are closely cooperating in the issues which you are now listing. So I would like to express my gratitude to our partners, because without their support, it would be really harder for us to organize this process of communication with the communities, with the civil society, with the experts in these issues. So I would like to thank the program HOVERLA, which is supported by the United States Agency of International Development, USAID HOVERLA, our permanent partners. It is so important for us now, under the conditions of, unfortunately, ongoing actions of our aggressor against Ukraine. And under these conditions, we need to, together with the local self-governance and with other central executive branch authorities, we need to find the ways to support and develop altogether the whole economy of the state. But we do understand that it consists of, first of all, of efficiency of the activities at the basic level, at the level of the territorial hromadas or communities. So the aim of this event to drive the attention for the local self-governance authorities to this important topic, which we have named food security in a nutshell. But in fact, it is the whole number of questions connected with the achievements of this aim, that is the local economic development and the job places and businesses and lots of other important issues which are interconnected here. So if a year ago we were speaking about the issues of local development, the issues of the strategy for the development of communities is one of the top priorities, still, we did not focus our attention on that. We were more speaking about the resources, the land resource, the budget resource. We did not always prioritize the economic issues. So now we are consciously emphasizing our attention on the activity of the local self-governance, on the issues of the development. So we would like, and we are insisting for the local self-governance and their leaders, those are the heads of the villages and the MPs of local councils, to pay more and more attention to that, because, let us be sincere, that we have had a very hard year ahead of us, and we understand which losses Ukraine had already, including the communities and including the infrastructure and businesses which has been working or is working on their territories. So we need to search for the ways either to restore, to recover, or to found new types of activities which would give us not only some product outcome in the end, but also some of the budget allocations. Because our analysis witnesses that local budgets, in spite of the average indicator all over Ukraine is positive during half of the year, and we also have this indicator for the 7 months already, it's cool, but all of that is done with the help of some of the tax income and tax allocations, which don't always define the economy of the growth, because the taxes are paid from different persons. It's not always the indicator of the development, especially if those who take salary from the budget are paying. So again, I would like to say we will constantly emphasize our attention on that if we really rely upon the support of our line ministries, because the role of the Ministry of the Development of Communities is to be interested in that. But without the help of the experts which are working in the ministries of some programs which they have, it would be hard to achieve some of the result. Simultaneously, at these events, these kind of events will show nice practices of the territorial communities which they're using today, which take into account the peculiarities of the modern state of affairs, the period connected with the internally displaced persons, or under the conditions which are closer to the combat actions. All of that will be done by us, and I urge all of you, I call to you, come back to this topic and actively work on it at the local platforms, and we are always ready to give the answers to the questions if you have them. Thank you. Thank you, Vyacheslav Nehoda. The project of USAID HOVERLA during such a short period of time in Ukraine has had very high trust among the communities. They definitely know now that it's not just the name of the highest mountain in Ukraine, but also the name of the team of experts, and they can rely upon their experience. We are now with Gabriel in touch. Gabriel, Abraham, and Mr. Abraham, the floor is yours. Do you hear us? Abraham, Mr. Abraham, are you with us?
Yes.
Yeah, we got you. Good morning, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start with the last sentence of Deputy Minister Nehoda, which is to say that we want to hear from you and we want to take these discussions to action. So the point of these briefings is actually in line with many European standards. That is to say, empowered local governments that can raise their issues to central government. But at the same time, the purpose of this meeting is for us to have a mechanism by which local governments can raise their important issues to the national government. This discussion today on food security and local economic development is very valuable and it's very important. This meeting is also a joint initiative that HOVERLA is conducting with the Ministry of Communities and Territorial Development, with the main purpose of building the advocacy mechanisms of the local governments and to find solutions. The invasion has created many pressures that the communities and local governments face. In order to find the priorities, HOVERLA has conducted surveys among more than 500 local communities to identify the top priorities, and we will continue to do these. The results of the survey and these priorities are also transmitted to the national government. Through this forum and others, with the hope of turning these into policies, legislation, funding, and action. During previous events, the items raised included financial challenges, communal services, and food security, as Deputy Minister Nehoda pointed out earlier. I'm also glad to see that the Ministry of Agriculture has joined our meeting today to present their initiatives and for them to hear the voices of the community. I'm hoping that during the course of the dialogue, they can also articulate some of the initiatives that they have taken for the community. As you're aware, farming season is coming to an end. The eating season will soon be with us. But tied to this is the need to revitalize the agro industries, restoring markets, and to find sustainable solutions. Local economic development can be the key to food security. And we've seen on many instances where local municipalities have demonstrated successful cases of implementing local economic development programs aimed at food security. We're very proud of how the municipalities across Ukraine work hard on trying to ensure security, well-being of their residents in these very, very difficult times. I would like to thank the participants of this engagement and would like to thank the government represented by the Ministry of Communities and Territorial Development for continuing its decentralization reforms even during this brutal invasion. Thank you very much.
Дякую, пане.
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. So let us begin our discussion. But before beginning this process, I would offer you to see the video. This is the video about the local economic development of Horodotska community in Lviv region. A bit later, we'll have the discussion block where we'll have the representative of this community and we'll have an opportunity to ask him more details. But let's look how this issue is solved at the local level, please. Horodotska community in Lviv region is fighting on all the fronts. The secretary of Horodotska community and city council and several deputies have mobilized voluntarily. Those who remain provide the rear and fight for the economy of the municipality and community. They pay special attention to the development of the local economy and support the operation of the small and medium businesses. There were agreements with the farmers. We began communicating with our farmers and took advantage of the changes in the legislation which provided the expansion of the sowing of grain and other crops through the awarding of direct contracts rather than holding auctions on the transfer of additional hectares of land into economic circulation. We had approximately deals with 15 smaller and bigger and medium agricultural enterprises and farmers to use about 400 hectares of reserved land into circulation. According to the current legislation, they pay 6% of the regulatory monetary assessment of the land value. In our case, it's 1,700 hryvnia per year for 1 hectare. Horokhivska community has an efficient tool for strengthening the local economy. The industrial park Zahid Resurs and the logistics company of the same name are located on its territory, along with other types of activities. The preference is given to the location of food production, storage and processing of plant and animal products. In March this year, the state provided several incentives for the development of industrial parks. For example, the profit of an industrial park is exempt from income tax for about 10 years. Funds exempted from taxation must be directed to the development of the activities of the industrial park participant, and village, town and city councils have the right to establish tax benefits for non-residential real estate objects located on the territory of the industrial park and owned by its participants. To strengthen the municipality food security, the company endeavors to operate agricultural warehouses and facilities for processing products. In the future, we plan to launch agricultural warehouses for the processing of raw materials. We plan to further attract similar enterprises and process all agricultural products. Demand for storage and processing of products, of course, exists, but there is greater demand for storage. That is why the logistics company of Zahid Resurs is gradually expanding its capabilities, including storage facilities. The increase of the prices of mineral fertilizers led to the lower crop yield. However, fruit and berry crops are developing well. After their harvesting, they will be sent for processing and juice production. We take raw materials from our gardens and our fields for production. We grow on our farm approximately 80% of everything. Our products are available in the national and regional networks in Ukraine, and we're also entering foreign markets. So as of today, our products have been exported to the UAE. It's presented directly in Dubai, and there are negotiations to supply products to Canada, the US, and Germany. There is interest in natural products. So it is beneficial for municipalities and communities to increase the number of small and medium farms. They provide products for domestic consumption and can create value added. This is an advantage for the local economy. However, state support and grant projects are needed for the development of farming and the possibilities of processing products. So this word state support is so important. Now we are coming to the block, the state support program for the local economic development, and we are in touch with Viacheslav Zubenko, expert on the budget of the project of USAID HOVERLA. Vyacheslav, do you see us? Do you hear us? Yes, I can both see you and hear you. Same here, and we hope to see you as well. Vyacheslav, in your introduction speech, Mr. Abraham just mentioned that the local economy is the key for the food security. What do you think? What needs to be done at the state level of the support for this key to open the doors of the food security, not just to stay on the shelf? Well, in fact, there are lots of mechanisms and leverages, and I do hope that today, what we will discuss today, as one of the components, as one of the substantial steps which is done by the state for the support of the local communities, this is the support which we will discuss as the state programs. Well, I know that you have a presentation. Yes. I have a presentation. I'm sharing my screen now. Do you see my presentation? Yes. Well, they say that we do. Perfect. So we are all listening to you. Perfect. So, hello all of the presentees. I'm happy to see such an esteemed and respectful audience. As it was mentioned by Gabriel, we do hope to have discussion and the results of these actions, some of the steps which will further positively impact the development of the economy and the support of our communities. So, today the project of HOVERLA is presenting information about the state programs for the support of economy, which you can take part in 2022. At the website you can see the list of the programs which we found with open access. There are some of the main ones, main information about each of the programs. At the slide about the volume of its funding. At the following slides you will be able to see the main requirements, the target audience of these programs, and in my presentation I will dwell upon the interesting points, which first of all I do hope would be interesting for the communities, for the hromadas, the participants of today's event. I will not deal with each of the programs in more details because we have more reporters and speakers and the representatives of the ministries who will be speaking in more details about the conditions for these programs' allocation, how they're used, and what are the efficient and practical results which we can get in the process of the implementation of the above-mentioned initiatives from the state. Also, I'd like to draw your attention that our partners, the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, has created infographics about the state support programs for economy. It will be posted at the website of Decentralization, or maybe it is there already, and it will be disseminated among the participants of our event. So we can see that as of today, the state gives the opportunity to use different types of state support, either the grant and processing entrepreneurship or the creation of crediting, the program of crediting or giving loans. The sums of these programs are rather diverse, from 1 million hryvnia to 60 million hryvnia. Depending on the aim and task of the above-mentioned program, we consider that under the current crisis, the decrease of GDP, the decrease of the economy, the state support is very relevant, and it will provide some of the push for the development of our communities and hromadas. I created this presentation in this type that we grouped the programs according to the responsibility of the ministries, which institutions take care of what program. So let us begin with the Ministry of Economy. Two grants, the grant for their own business and the grant for the processing. So I would like to drive your attention to an interesting point. That we have different volumes of funding, but there are some interesting things which unite these grants. That the grant can, this grant can be given not only to the enterprises and legal entities, but the people who have to create the enterprises, the people who will be generating the creation of the new job places. The next ministry, as of today, is the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food, which is presented with two grants, the grant for the garden and grant for the greenhouse. The grant for the garden has the volume of from 140,000 to 400,000 hryvnia, but we need to drive your attention that when you submit an application at the DIA portal, you still need to give the project with the crops, which has the explanation note, the master plan, the budget, and the passport of the plan. As of the grant for the greenhouse, here we have very specific expenses, that is the creation of the module greenhouse, the acquirement of the production means, and also payment for these means of production and manufacturing, and taking them into the work. The following programs are under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Finance of Ukraine. Unfortunately, as far as I understand, the representatives could not join us today in this event. You can see the program on the accessible loan 579, the program of financial leasing, and the program of accessible mortgage. So as of the loans, first, the volume of the loans is max 60 million hryvnia. There is the sphere of the use of this loan, which is rather broad. Those are the main means. These are the non-residential real estate, the land plots, the repairment of the premises, except the office premises, and funding of the capital. We do think that these issues are very relevant today, in spite of some of the restrictions for the expenses for the local and national budgets, which have very precise and specific priorities of those expenses. As for the mortgage, I'd like to drive your attention. It's one of the, I would say, key programs which needs to be used, and it has very high demand. It is done for everybody who needs accommodation. The size of the loan is 85% of the price of the mortgage, but not more than 2 million hryvnia. And separately, I'd like to drive your attention that it is foreseen that there will be some special conditions for the servicemen, the soldiers, the law enforcement employees, the medics, the teachers, with 3%. The following programs are the programs on crediting of micro, smaller and medium-sized businesses on priority spheres, and the programs on the supporting of financing of investment projects with priority spheres. The participants in the first programs allows you to get up to 150,000 euro in hryvnia equivalent. In the second program, up to 250,000 euro as well in hryvnia equivalent. The expenses and losses are also predefined. Those are the funding of the SMEs projects, the financing of investment projects, and also the turnover capital of SMEs, which provide activity in the economy, hotel, restaurant business, and also projects on energy efficiency. And kind of new initiatives, the words we know so well, the grant for a startup and grant of innovative vouchers. The first grant is up to 750,000 hryvnia. There are different types to get money according to this grant. 750,000 is for the startups at the level of the approval of the concept. Up to 1.5 million is for the startups at the level of the minimally viable product. And the third criteria to get this money is up to 3.5 million hryvnia when the startup has attracted funding at the early stage for the development of the startup. And also we need to mention that this grant can be given both to the citizens of Ukraine who are registered as the sole proprietors and the legal entities. The founders should be just the citizens of Ukraine. So these are the main conditions to get those initiatives. And the last two ones is the grant of double significance and the compensation for the job employment. So as for the double assigning, I would like to emphasize that there are precise spheres where this grant is possible for implementation. First, defense. Secondly, cybersecurity. The third, infrastructure restoration. The third, healthcare. And then education. And the last slide shows a separate topic. I'd like to mention that besides the state support of the programs, we have other initiatives, other spheres where we can get money from and which can be planned both for the financial potential for the development of communities and the local development. Those are international programs for the support of local economical development, the projects within the program on the recovery of Ukraine, the region or oblast support programs, and also we have lots of local support programs of the local economic development. I think this will be the topic of the separate following discussion as a separate topic for the potential of the development of our economy under such brutal conditions of the aggression by our neighbor, the Russian Federation. Dear colleagues, that's it from me. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Viacheslav, we thank you. The Q&A session will take place in the end of the event. And now let us move on. So we have seen the information about 13 main state programs of support. The Ministry of Agrarian Policy has created the opportunity to simplify such a state program allocation. On the 12th of August, there was the presentation of the State Agrarian Register. And we do hope that Mr. Taras Vysotskyi, Deputy Minister, will tell us who can register in this register, or maybe all of the farmers can get guaranteed state support if they register in DAR. DAR is the acronym for this register. And can usual farmers, just usual farmers with 3 or 4 cows or 1 to 2 hectares of land, can they have the state support? Hello, I thank you for the invitation to today's event. This is the nice tradition when we can share information and disseminate it, including the help of the communities about the perspectives which we have for different types of businesses at the places. I will just clarify the presentation of Mr. Zubenko. From 140 to 400,000 is per 1 hectare when we are speaking about the grant for a garden, and you can get the grant to 25 hectares. So if you have intense or extensive growings, 25 hectares can get up to 10 million hryvnia. We have such cases when people get up to 10 million hryvnia for a garden. 21 application has been approved already for the sum of more than 85 million hryvnia. So in the video you could see gardening processing that's really working in all of the regions. Yes, really, the Ministry of Agrarian Policy has launched the State Agrarian Register. The grants for the garden and greenhouse are done through the DIA portal, and the State Agrarian Register is just the online platform for the direct support programs. I can tell you instantly, anybody can register there. You will just need to have the e-signature. It shouldn't be definitely the legal entity. There could be just a farmer or the sole proprietor with a personal agrarian entity. So there are no restrictions. Ukrainians and citizens can register in the State Agrarian Register. So during these 2 weeks of work, we have more than 3,000 registrations in the State Agrarian Register. Through the Agrarian Register, we are beginning with 2 support programs. This is the payment per hectare, as of 3,100 hryvnia per hectare. It can be up to 120 hectares. And you asked me about the restrictions. There are no restrictions. If you have 1 or 2 hectares, because, well, in fact, the average historical land lot was 3.5 hectares, so you can register with your land lot and get this payment as well. And the second program, which is launched through the State Agrarian Register, is the support of those who have cows. Up to 100 cows, the minimal to have at least 3 cows. At least to have the micro scale, the payment is 5,300 hryvnia per cow. And again, the people who have 3 cows and more can register and get some help. And of course, the compulsory requirement is that the cows have to be registered in the certification agency. Everything has to be transparent. The same about land lots. All of them have to be registered. So the amount is not the matter of principle, but we do not support so-called grey activity. If the land or the animals are officially registered, you can apply, and we ask you to apply and to get some help. The start for applications for the state program will be from the 1st of September, but you can register even now, and after the 1st of September you can select the programs, and in 5 minutes you can send the application to get this or that type of help. We also have Tetiana Berezhna, who is Deputy Minister of Economy. Hello, Tetiana. We heard what are the grant programs, and I paid attention that they concern mostly sole proprietors, legal entities, but I'm interested whether there are any programs of your ministry which would concern communities or hromadas. Why am I asking that? Because now we have the active discussion of the economic tax reform, and there are different types to increase the taxes, to simplify the tax system. It's interesting for me, what does your ministry prepare in taxation for the communities? Will it simplify their economic activity and further provision of food security, or it can make it harder or more complicated? What about the level of hromadas, communities, not just entrepreneurs? The task of the Ministry of the Economy in the taxation in the places is just the creation of all of the conditions to have new job places created and the payment of the taxes which are paid from the places. So our main task is the creation of the job places there. And one of the programs which is providing that really actively is the program of micro grants, which is acting within the grant project Yerobota. Yesterday we assessed how many job places we expect which will be created after the founded program by the government, Yerobota, which consists of 6 smaller programs. So we calculated that we are expecting approximately 300,000 of job places. So in fact, we understand that tax administering at the local level, at the state level, is a huge task, not only for our ministry altogether of the tax authorities and the government, because the tax rate is very important, the discount is very important, but it's also important to pay these taxes in the proper and simple way. So this is the very complex task. And if we speak about the taxation, I would say that the most important thing is to create some basis for the taxation, the work which will provide revenue and the taxes from that. So I'm ready to tell about the programs which provide that. Yes, please. I had a presentation. Could you please show it? So one of our programs which we are implementing within the grant program Yerobota is the program of micro grants. It was mentioned a lot about it, but today I would like to update you what has taken place during the recent times. Now we have finalized 3 waves, and we can state that as a consequence of these 3 waves, when the participants could apply, there were approximately, just a moment, I don't see the slides. I'll try to open it on my cell phone. So we adopted 884 positive decisions out of 6,697 applications. So we foresee that out of those positive decisions, the people who get the grants will create 2,450 job places. So this is answering your question, what will take place with the taxes at the places in the communities in Hromadas. So we are expecting that the entrepreneurs who win those grants will get an opportunity to create job places, because an important condition for this grant program of micro grants is to pay back the sum of grants, which is 10 to 250,000 grants as the taxes and fees from the work. And what's important as of today, that the waves are not only taking place, what do I mean when I say a wave? This is the period of time when the entrepreneur can submit application for a grant. Then the documentation is sent for the check, for the business reputation, bankruptcy and so on, and then to the state employment center, where we check the ambitions of the enterprise, whether we would like to create and develop their business, and after that there is an interview and we take a decision whether really this person has an opportunity to get this kind of funding or financing. So we have 3 waves. The 4th wave is being processed by the bank, the State Employment Center, and the 5th wave is going on. So we do encourage all the representatives of the communities in the places, all the entrepreneurs and also all the private persons who are not registered as the entrepreneurs. Please submit and apply for this program, because you can see that the active region is Kyiv region. We have 248 winners according to the 3 waves. The first 227 participants who have successfully submitted the applications, they got the money. They already using that, and the funding took place as 52 million hryvnia. So we are analyzing the program, how to introduce the program to make it more convenient for the entrepreneurs and everybody who would like to, in fact, submit the application. We extended the spheres where we can get money for. For instance, there was the opportunity to pay rent and to buy some raw materials or materials, and also to spend these materials for this money for the advertisements, to buy the franchise, so you can buy the ready business. So in fact the state creates all the conditions for the businesses at the places to develop and to create new job places. I can also, could you show the next slide, please? We can also see the most popular types of the activities. That is the retail and wholesale trade, processing industry, food organizations, and we're expecting that those figures will increase. As you can see, we have three columns where we can see the winners. So the Ministry of Economy, together with the State Employment Center and the bank, with DIA Portal, we are implementing this program, and I do hope it will be useful for the communities, for the entrepreneurs on the places, and for the state as it is. Thank you. I'm interested. 13% of positive decisions. 884 applications were adopted out of several thousand. Is it a lot or not enough? Did you hope to have more or less? Well, you know, it seems to me that in the beginning we saw such a trend that maybe the entrepreneurs do not have enough of experience for the submission of these applications. In the first wave, we can see that the tendency was not that good. But wave after wave, we can see the growth of this percentage. So we're expecting that the entrepreneurs will use the active, actively these participants. So this percentage will be for everybody. We're actively consulting. So did you think there will be more or less? We thought that will be about 20%. So we do hope that our expectations will be exceeded. And for the people who are watching us, so at what stage do you get rid of the majority of the applications? Well, it is done both at the checks of the bank, of the business reputation and the courts, and also we have to say goodbye to some of the participants during the interview, because a very frequent mistake is when filling the business plan, they just forget how many job places they plan to create. And I remind you, this is one of the most important aims to create this grant program, to create job places. So after we even show in the Telegram channels, please do not repeat those mistakes. And I'm reminding you, the person can submit applications several times until he or she has a successful application. So we do hope this percentage will be higher. And the last question, you see there are lots of questions for you. Yes, it's very pleasant for me. Yes, I'm interested in that. The issue of relocation of businesses, because it's so important. It used to be important and it is still important, but one community is losing, another community is gaining. Do you have any preferences for those who are relocating business from your ministry? Yes, of course. I remind you the short statistics during the times when relocation began. That is, since March 2022, the applications were submitted by more than 1,000 of enterprises who wanted to relocate from the east to the west. The platform of Prozoro, together with the Ministry of Economy, have created all the conditions with the help of the cooperation which was at the places. The Ministry of Economy created all the conditions for the businesses and some of the manufacturing capacities to be moved. So now 700 enterprises are moved and more than 500 of them began their work. So there are some enterprises who are now under process, and we are actively helping them to cooperate with the local authorities to finalize this kind of relocation. So we are listening to them. We try to be relevant, not to lose a single job place, and for all the enterprise to go on their work. Tetiana, you've provided so much of valuable information for those who are listening us, for the enterprises, but where can they read and see whatever you told us about? If we begin with what we have begun before, that is your own business and grant program for it, Lots of the information can be found at the website of the State Employment Center, the Telegram channels, the Ministry of Economy. You can get the answers for the frequently asked questions at the website of DIA. The website of DIA is the place where you can submit an application. I always forget to mention about that. So together with a business plan, the application is uploaded, and here you can read the information how it can be submitted. As for the relocation of the enterprises, together with the Ministry of Economy, we are telling how you can submit an application for relocation, how it is done at Prozoro program. So there is lots of information in the public sphere. So thank you, Tetiana. So I'm reminding you that the program of HOVERLA has processed main 13 state support programs. We have prepared the comprehensible and easy infographics, 13 infographics. So in the end of today's event, we will see them at the website of the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center and the portal of decentralization. And we are going to the next chapter of our today's meeting, that is the international support program of the local economic development. We give the floor, unfortunately remotely, to Ron Hunter, the senior manager on infrastructure of the USAID AGRO Program. Ron, do you hear us?
Yes, I do hear you. I am unfortunately very unprepared to present today. I will say that the presentation thus far has been very interesting. I agree, based on our experience with the required emphasis on local actors and governance at the municipality and oblast levels does appear to us to require some capacity development initiatives based on our experience implementing infrastructure. We do have some proposals that are in our inbox that do appear to address some of the food security issues that we've discussed. And I very deeply apologize, but I do not have any presentation prepared. If there are any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Схоже, що запитань.
Well, seems there are no questions so far, but we will have the Q&A session later. It will start at about 1:45 Kyiv time. So if you don't mind, would you please stay with us on air, and then there will be some questions.
Хорошо.
І ми тоді.
So now we are moving directly to the experience of the communities in the local economic development. So we are now in touch with Maria Nikorych, the head of Novoselytska community of Chernivtsi Oblast. Maria, do you hear us? Maria Nikorych, do you hear us? Hello. I know that in your community every single person is working for the victory. Some people are at the front line, some are dealing with the humanitarian relief, and some are getting in touch with the international municipalities. Maria, it is so important for us to hear how the community is working, developing the local economy, what it does for today. Hello, all of the participants. I'm happy to see some people who I know already. And as it was mentioned, Novoselytska Hromada is one of the biggest communities of Chernivtsi Oblast. We have the population of more than 30,000. We are trying under these conditions to work, first of all, for the victory, to provide help for those who are in need within the combat areas, both to our guys and to those communities who have the necessity to get humanitarian relief. Using such an advantage that we are the community with the state border, in our activity we pay a lot of attention to the development of the international connections We have approximately 12 cooperation deals with the municipalities and communities of the neighboring Romania, Lithuania, and even during the combats, we had an offer from several communities from France and Italy to sign the cooperation agreements and mutual development. Of course, we need to work for our victory. So the local economic development is one of the main tasks Novoselytska Hromada is working on, and the executive branch committee is working on. So, of course, the agrarian producers. Our community has more than 40 legal entities or private persons who are dealing with the growing and processing of agrarian products. Mostly those are grains and technical crops. Unfortunately, this year we have the war, so the yield, the harvesting, is not as high as usually in our community. Our community is the Hromada where the average size of the land plot is 1.1 hectare. Those are very small land plots. But our agrarians, especially those who have been organized into legal entities, that is sole proprietor Zolotый Kolos, sole proprietor Avantgarde, and others, Niva Avaka, they are still working for the victory. So I'm grateful to those who, taking into account the situation which we are having now, of course our agrarians are searching for the ways to solve the product issue which may emerge later. We have a very bad situation with soy sales, and some of our agrarians decided to replace some of their acres with buckwheat. You know, this year we'll have 2 yields of early buckwheat, which has already been harvested, and sown the late one. So, of course, it will lead to the increase of the amount of products at the market of this such important crop for Ukraine. We are working also, our agrarians are working on the development of unfortunately smaller branch as animal farming. Just last year they had huge enterprises here, but the African pig plague led to bad consequences. They haven't restored their activity fully, but we hope to restore the work of these enterprises to grow pigs. Gardening has been present on the territory of our community, and several bigger fruit storages were had, unfortunately, to begin demolishing of the gardens, because the sales of the products with such low prices led to the situation when it's not profitable anymore. So we are working on the information work both in the state programs, which give us the opportunity to take part the program of Orchard and the program of Greenhouse, and the international programs. So our community is living not only with agrarians. We have the enterprises which are processing meat, and today they are working mostly to provide our army. But those are additional job places. It gave the opportunity for some of the enterprises which deal with meat processing and manufacturing of meat products, gave the opportunity to increase the number of job places and the welfare of the community. Thanks God, we are at peace. We have peace here. But we go on as we used to. And this is our huge advantage in comparison with other communities. We have 2 relocated enterprises on the territory of our community. This is the enterprise on the production of it's the enterprise on the production of the prosthetics appliances, which unfortunately are really needed now, and the fish production, which relocated from Kiev region, and they are working on our territory. Together with our international partners, especially with the programs of transborder cooperation, we are working to increase the number of job places. So within the program of fertilizers, this year we launched a new trade campus in the city park. We launched and opened, though we are in Chernivtsi region, we are not a Carpathian community. Our community, our Hromada, is located in the valley, in the riverbed of the Prut River. So we opened the 10 wonders of Novoselytska community, which allowed us to create the new tourist route. And our entrepreneurs got an opportunity to work and to provide additional services, both for our guests and our residents. So today I'd like to say that more than 3.5 thousand of forcefully displaced persons got shelter in our community. And it also lived to the vivid character of the economic development, because lots of them are already living here. We have 1,300 of internally displaced people, but the majority of them have jobs. They are now the full-scale members of our community. They are temporary residents of our community. They are getting services, and it gives the opportunity for the economic development. We are working on the programs of local economic development, which was adopted by the decision of the Novoselytska City Council for the strategy of the development of the community. And we would like to create the Association of Entrepreneurs, which took place this spring. Our community adopted the program for the development of smaller and medium businesses and enterprises. The war made us adjust. But as all the Bukovina residents, we will try to work not only for ourselves, not only to create the conditions for the living here, our diaspora, as we call them, who are working in the European countries, with their impact and investments into the development of SMEs, are creating conditions for our residents who are staying in our community to get new job places. And these are new budget allocations. Unfortunately, really, today the budget allocations are mostly from the tax. But still, we have the task to make the businesses more vivid and lively, and to provide food security for the community, and to provide the investment into the food security of our country. Thank you, Maria. We are also in touch with Mr. Viktor Hodyk, the head of Horokhivska, community of Volyn region. Victor, are you with us? Yes, sure. Hello, Victor. I have the following question. For more than an hour, we are saying that the economic activation is connected with the creation of new job places. There are lots of grant programs and government projects how to make it more lively. We saw the statistical data. Statistically, it looks nice and optimistically. So I'd like to hear from you. What about the local level? Do you feel the interest of the people in those grant projects, the wish to submit the application and to activate the existing business or to start up the activity? Hello, all the participants. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to you, the heroes. Thank you for the question. I'd like to share my own experience, how we in our community have implemented the program of support. Our community was created in 2020. The community consists of 26,000 of population. We have 42 settlements, and the vast majority is the structures of lands. We are the agricultural community, which has 40,000 hectares. The vast majority of these lands and crops, we grow grains and technical crops, and we have 4,000 of personal farmerships. So we, implementing the strategy of development, we would like took the decision that for the priorities which we have in the development program, we decided to develop the support program of the agricultural cooperatives in our community. So for us it was very important, both for me and our team, the local self-governance authorities, it was important for this program not to be just declarative, but to achieve some of the results. And the most important for us, to develop the communication mechanism with our agricultural producers and also with personal farmerships. We tried to diversify our agrarian sector for the development of the agricultural cooperatives. So we managed to implement and to help the implementation for the development of gardening. The berry cooperative turned to us for us to help them to compensate expenses on the creation of the greenhouse for growing berries, just for strawberries. So we're also cooperating with the USAID HOVERLA program on the development of communities. So I'd like to mention that today within this project we are conducting the poll, the survey among the producers, smaller and bigger ones, which are dealing with gardening. So we have certain understanding that as of today, in spite of the war and hard conditions, they are ready to increase the arable lands, to increase the growing of their products. It's very important for us. Because I would say that the producers understood that we today as the local self-governance authorities are ready to support them financially at the local level. It is very important for us because today, even in the surveys, we can see that the tendency and the dynamic of the increase of the arable lands for these crops could be that push, that impulse and incentive which witnesses that we are on the right way. We are ready to support our agricultural producers to improve the employment of the population of our rural territories. So thanks to our project, USAID Agro, we are working in 3 spheres. The development of the local programs, those are more professional, with the participants of the experts in the creation of these programs. Then we have the development of the budget documentation and design documentation for the storage. And the fourth is the support of our berry cooperative, which is the beginner only. So I think that we will be working in that sphere because this is the stimuli for us. And the understanding that today, for us as the local self-governance, the producers have seen us as a partner who will be working in this sphere. Victor, at the website of your community, I saw the project, the draft of the strategy for the development of your community, and that was about the development of the development of the farmerships. I don't know whether the strategy has been adopted. Well, it is in the final stage. With the help of the ULEAD program, we have developed this strategy, so now it is at the approval stage. And I do hope that we are in touch with Olena Sydorenko, the head of Orzhytska community of Poltava region. Olena, are you with us? We can see you, we do not hear you. Could you unmute yourself? Yes, now we do hear you, Olena. And we know that you create cheese, butter, you have dough production, there are enterprises and entrepreneurs and in food industry, but according to your documents, you have higher potential. So was the war an obstacle in the implementation of the potential of your community? Yes, thank you. Yes, unfortunately, the war is an obstacle. Our community has been created in 2020, 33 settlements, agrarian region, and definitely it turned out that our part has been divided into two communities, and the main budget-filling enterprise now is in a different community. So we are now in the situation which Churchill said about, when we are out of money, we need to begin to think. So the budget allocations were over and we needed to think about the ways out. So we decided to work with the local revenues and local taxes. We increased the rent for the land, we increased the land tax, we're monitoring the payment. This is how we are filling the budget. The second step which we have conducted or implemented, this is when you come to your own person to have something of your own. We have our own dairy factory, so we worked a lot to provide the educational institutions of our region with the products of our dairy factories, to have cheaper and organic products. Then we decided to focus on the involvement of the tourism, for people to see the authenticity and the nature of our land. Nice and delicious hunting and fishing, so we introduced the tourist route and also the Sula River canoes. So we also bought the equipment and won the regional competition to expand those opportunities, but the war unfortunately stopped the process. So we are working to support our local entrepreneurs who are having their first steps in the business. We have our own family farms, we have the processing of milk and also the production of cheeses. We are beginning the work for the enterprises or the institutions which are functioning here to have at least some dotations. So we tried to work with the communal enterprises. Our communal enterprises is dealing with the welfare, but also they're working with land. They have such a code of economic activity. They got first hectares of land, so they tried to process them. And we saw that they can do that. Out of 9 hectares of their bank of land grew to 116 hectares. But again, the war became an obstacle to process this land and to inventorize, to take it for the balance. So now they process only 42 hectares. We are hoping that they will be able to do that. We had the calculation how to launch the enterprise which a priori cannot be profitable. Because we decided that they need at least to earn for their salaries and remuneration. For that, they need approximately 200 hectares of land with high yields. Those are our first steps, and we are working on that. I was interested in the idea which was mentioned by the head of the agricultural sphere, so I do hope that we will also use our family economic entities and farmerships for the development to fill the budget and of the people. Thank you, Olena. Now let's move to Lviv region. We could see already the report about Horodotska community. We are in touch with Volodymyr Remeniak. Volodymyr? Hello? Hello? Do you hear me? Not that well, but we do hope that we'll hear you better. Volodymyr, we are discussing the economic development of the communities in the context of food security. So I'm interested, after this video which we showed, is your community that confident in the food security sphere? Do you feel yourself safe? Dear colleagues, we are not out of money, but we are thinking already on that. So I think that under the conditions of the martial law, no one can feel safe in Ukraine. And our close neighbors, the Poles, are not feeling safe as well. But I'd like to emphasize your attention on the growth, and we could see that on the territory of some of the communities we have special projects, and also we develop the sphere through the construction of the new greenhouses. We have registered that since 2018 the industrial parks with the same name, Zahid Resource. So our internal investors have allocated enterprises to store their products and to process the products on the territory of our parks. We'd like to use these mechanisms as much as possible, as well as the opportunities to provide investments which are foreseen by the legislation of Ukraine and which we could see during the previous years. For this startup to be successful, we are working with some groups from Kharkiv region who would like to invest into the economy. So we are also providing dotations for the industrial park. So we do hope that there will be some of the potential which will provide us the good startup capital. And again, one of the functioning spheres for the park is the storage and processing of the products of our agricultural products. Another point of growth is for the internally displaced people. The IDPs are not just the social project. The IDPs are the labor resource, which can be involved and used as well. This week we signed an agreement on partnership with the friends from Spain and one more NGO of Ukraine, which foresees one of the projects on the administrative premises, which should become the place for the accommodation of the IDPs. The next step of this project should be the creation of the job places, including those which are connected with the processing of the agricultural products according to the labor resource of the people who will be living in the community. We are beginning with 12 million hryvnia. Our friends offered the readiness to invest this sum of money. within the 6 months since the day of the beginning of the implementation of this project. One more important project is that we will be using that beyond our budget, because the budget is very loaded. During half of the year, we have it for, under the conditions of the war, we have 98%. We may say it's good, but still we could make it better. The peculiarity of our budget allocation is that the money is mostly coming from the taxes, the income tax. Enterprise by enterprise, especially those who lost their markets in the east of Ukraine, to increase the territories beyond Ukraine. And also, what's important, the support of the partnership and the industrial park. We declared that all of the preferences about the discounts and local payments will be also used. The second point of growth is the use of the IDPs as an economic resource, together with the funding of the programs by the international technical assistance. So using the current legislation, we can use more than 400 hectares. So I have the request to the legislators. We would like to provide necessary investments to get those lands ready for the sowing campaign, to have some of the economic revenue from those 400 hectares to be sown, if there is such an opportunity, at least for a year, since the next year, in April, we have formed the product reserve. With the residents of our community and the IDPs to provide logistics. So we would like to provide all the categories with the necessary products for the following time. Within the grant, we need to focus on the work and in the West, in Kiev and Lviv, because unfortunately we don't have as much money as we used to have last year. Last year we involved 106 million of money of assistance and investments from the regional programs. The interpreter apologizes, but the quality of the sound is just not affordable. Volodymyr, we thank you. I would only like to clarify, is it right that you were also speaking about the use of the IDPs as the economic resource? Could you tell more about that? Because this is what lots of communities are living through. What is about your experience in that? Yes, because we understand that the people lost their homes. So this is the social project. If we consider the IDPs as a burden only, we'll have to bear social responsibility. We need to look at the structure of these layers of society. So within the project with the Spanish, we need to work with the people who can take care about themselves and to create new conditions. Volodymyr, you also have very educated community. 20 graduates of your community had the highest points in the overall national test. So will those children come back to your community? Will they have the job places? I think yes. In the strategy which we are developing, we are basing upon the strategy for the development of the state, for the regional strategy, and we have foreseen that we are not only speaking about the quantity of the created job place, but of the quality as well. Because our community is not endless in its labor resource. So we'd like to have more qualified experts. Unfortunately, the quality of sound is inadmissible.
ГОВЕРЛА, я думаю, що ми будемо враховувати виклики і реалії сьогодні.
We thank you, Volodymyr. And this is the end of this block as well. Let's move to the Q&A session. Who is still staying with us in Zoom, I remind you that you can also press the button of raise your hand, and then we will see that you would like to pose the question. While you are getting ready, I will read the questions of Volodymyr Drubitska Magdalenivka, community of Dnipropetrovsk region. How can the idea be implemented to process the products of the plant's products at the communal level if the business is not ready for the cooperation? That's what was asked by the Trostianetska community. The communal enterprises cannot deal with food security somehow. Can any of you answer this question, please? So what's the problem? Well, because the local businesses are not responding enough to develop the processing, and the communal are ready, but still the law does not allow them. The communal enterprises are the full-scale, full-fledged subjects of the economic activities. We do not have in the state any priorities for the state-owned property or communal property, for the private ones, or any mixed type. That is why I think that we need to look at the statute of the enterprise here in this case, because it is approved by the local self-governance authorities. We need to use this activity, register this activity, and to deal according to the legislation. I think that in each of the cases, if there are some of the issues like this, I would ask you to describe the situation, to send an official letter to our ministry, for instance. And if it is the competency of a different ministry, we'll send it forward, and we'll ask them to explain, to clarify, or if it needs some of the amendments to the legislation or other acts which are adopted by the government, we will initiate that. So it is declared that the business does not want to, but we somehow cannot. But why can't we? So far we did not find out the reason. Depending on the type of the activities, there are some of the types which need to be licensed or to have some of the permits, depending on the type of the activities, from design to prosthetics for dentists. Thank you. Irina Obychvist is in touch with us, Media Center, Sylsky Noviny, Kharkiv region. What about the question from you? Could you unmute yourself? Do you hear me now? Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm the representative of Kharkiv region. I welcome all of the presentees at today's conference. I'd like to express my gratitude to the organizers for the incredibly important topic which you raised today. For me, as the representative of the community, which has 28,000 of population and took 20,000 of internally displaced persons, the topic of food security is incredibly important. But I'd like to ask a bit of a different thing about the support of the cooperatives. Do you have any programs? I do understand that some of the programs which we mentioned, which are affiliated, that is the support of processing and so on, are already there. But we have two unique cooperatives in the community. One of them, it dates back to the times of the landlords. Some of them are, one of them is the agricultural manufacturing. I do apologize. And another cooperative was created 2 years ago. It got the grant during the annual competition by the village council of many grants and many projects together to the future. So they got the money within this grant and created 3 warehouses and stores. The idea of this cooperative is to help the residents of the community to sell the remnants of their products and then to develop the processing of their products in the cooperative way. So are there any programs which can help for those cooperatives to develop? So this is the question to Tetiana. Thank you for the question. It is so nice that there are some initiatives like these at the places. I think that this form of legal entity is not an obstacle or any peculiarity. You can submit an application for the grant programs, which we support in the Ministry of Economy, which we popularize. And I'm not sure that you're interested in micro grants. The legal entities can do that as well. And also the processing enterprises can be submitted. The procedure is very hard, because getting this grant is taking place in the co-funding way. Some part is guaranteed by you, and some part is guaranteed by the state. But you need to look at the grant programs, whether you like them. And also I support the opinion which was expressed by Mr. Nehoda. You can take the explanations from us, telling about the peculiarities about your activities, about some of the statute provisions, and will definitely help you to select the program which will be suitable for your organizational legal form. But I do emphasize there are opportunities. You just need to submit. Thank you. We are in touch with Chernihiv region, newspaper, news of Horodyanshchina. Just a moment. Going on with this topic, maybe you remember 2008, 2010, there was a very active political movement in our state. There were some of the attempts to develop the cooperative movement and so on. The thing is that it's not about the name. I'm also considering that all of the types of institutional legal form or form of incorporation have their right for existence. If you can see that it is needed to introduce some of the changes to it, you can do that. To the statute, I mean. In other case, you can register as it has been presented. You can register a subject which can also provide the same services. Does it matter what's the name of it? Whether this is the collective economic entity, kolhosp, or the private organization, or the NGO. So all of the organizational forms of incorporation who can conduct economic activity can be used, including the community itself, which can found something on its own. Though I used to be a mayor for 8 years, and now we are supporting the local self-governance as well, we need to develop private initiatives, because both the state and the communal parts are also the parts of non-state, but still local state officials are dealing with that. It's not proved that this is the most efficient type of incorporation. They are needed, but where the business cannot take place, though I do not believe in that. If the business is done there, then the economy is not there as well. If the communal enterprise is dealing with that, it either needs to provide economy or it needs dotations. So you can provide dotations or state support to the private businesses in the same way. So you need the state authorities to create conditions for the development of businesses, of entrepreneurship, to be supported. Not just to be sowing and growing and harvesting on their own and then selling on the markets. The next question is from Svetlana Tomash, Noviny Horodyanshiny newspaper, Chernihiv region. Hello, do you hear me? Yes, hello, we do. Hello to all of the participants. It's so pleasant to be at such a meeting. This is really a very needed event. So the question about these we were in with Russia and Belarus, not far from them. We were for about a month under occupation. The consequences are very sad, so we could feel that on. And we didn't have that many investors even before the war. Now we understand that we need to hope only for the local entrepreneurs to restore our businesses and to get to our legs again. But all of the support programs foresee the help of the communities which are not located in the combat areas. Our community, unfortunately, is considered to be in the list of the Ministry of Reintegration as the one which still has warfare. We mean the daily shellings of the border regions, but we need to support businesses. Do you consider the support of the border communities? Because to get some of the grant, we need to be registered. So just to take away the businesses to get the loan is not the way out. So I've got such a question. Do you consider any idea to support these kind of communities? Thank you for the question. The question is really very relevant because we understand that lots of work is still done for the enterprises which relocated to the West. For the employers who are giving jobs to the IDPs as well. But it's so important, so we are now working in several spheres how we can help such regions which are in fact our front line. One of the points we are considering as the project is also compensation for the enterprises which are giving jobs to the new people, replacing the ones who left, who had to leave. So, for the enterprise to give the job to a new person, it needs incentives, including your areas. Besides that, we develop certain legislative initiatives which foresee tax exempts for such regions. They are under development in the parliament, where we registered several law drafts, which are created to make those regions to feel some of the simplification of the work in the taxation policy as well. I'd like, in fact, to assure you those issues are in the agenda of the parliament, and soon you will hear some of the solutions which will be useful for those communities. Can I add a bit? Are you speaking about the job employment for new people, but not that many people left our regions. People are waiting to coming back to their own job places. I am the editor-in-chief of the private enterprise. I have 6 employees who are still unfortunately don't have salaries, but they are still waiting to get back to their job places. We cannot give them such an opportunity without support. It always needs to be taken into consideration. We are taking the IDPs as well, but it is calm in comparison with Donetsk region, for instance. We have in our community 800 of IDPs, 300 of them are children, and very many of servicemen who are protecting the border. The community needs to support them as well. That's what we are doing. So I think that we need to prioritize that as well, and to help somehow, because we're also Ukrainians. Without any support, we cannot get back on our legs. I'll comment about the grant programs. About Chernihiv region, I can see that among the winners who are getting the grants, we also have the residents of these communities of this region. I'd like to assure you that stay at such dangerous territories or the deoccupied territories is not the obstacle to get the grant. I can assure you in that. So please submit your applications. And secondly, it is so important that we are working on the employment programs. As for now, we have the Law Draft 6067 in the Parliament, which provides compensations for the employers on the employment of people, and these compensations are the compensations of some of the taxes or the remuneration. So it has to be voted in the Parliament in the second reading. We will definitely highlight this point when it is voted for people to use these programs as soon as possible. Thank you for the question. Thank you. We are in touch with Roman Holovatsky, the representative of Trostianets community from Sumy. Hello, everyone. I would like to support my colleague who also asked her question. Our people were trying to apply for grants according to the program, through DIA program, but unfortunately we were refused because this was the territory of combats. So we could not apply. We could not submit an application. And in each of the procedures, the grant can be given to the legal entities except the economic entities of state sector and communal services. So we would like to have amendments. Would you give an opportunity to take part for the communal enterprises to get those grants? I thank you that you reminded us about that. Last time we had Mr. Yuri Bova who asked this question, and other colleagues from the different enterprises also and ministries promised to pay attention to that. I'll try to make sure today about that today. We could send this letter to the ministry because this is their competency. We will try to control that, and today we heard again that this is the issue. So maybe together with our colleagues, I don't see any problem that to take away the word "except" and just to put the comma instead of it. But what's the political or economic, in fact, feasibility of that? I do not see that as well. As for the previous question, if I took the microphone now, and your question as well, our ministry is considering now the budget initiative to implement, if we have the money for that in the budget, because the state budget, as you know, has certain needs, to foresee some amount of money for the support of the communities like your ones, which are located in the scene of fighting or close to active combat zones where constantly you get shellings, where the business, let us be frank, we cannot lure them there, because the business will focus on its private interests, whatever we say. I don't like the word relocation, because in fact we are just depriving the eastern and northern flank of the economic activity. But I do understand that our main task is to save our people, to go on working after the victory. So I'm sure that the majority of them will come back to these communities. If we take Kharkiv, those are not dozens but hundreds and thousands of enterprises which need to relocate or even suspend their activity. This is the war. So we will not just have pink glasses and just accuse ourselves that we are shelled by the enemy. We can hear that rather often from the other people who express condolences, who I will not just quote the spiritual activists, I will not name them, but who express condolences after the death of the propagandists of Russist theory. We need to think on that. So I would say that we are all thinking how to help each other. Last time we were speaking about that, the communities both in the center and in the west, besides their own problems, they have to daily help to each other. I personally was working how to help Trostianets. Maybe you don't know that. When you didn't even have a computer or the fax, but then they brought you so many of them that you didn't know where to take them to. So we're worried for each community and we'll go on doing that. And as for the initiative of the Ministry of the Regional Development, we'd like to introduce a kind of a subvention for the institutional support of the activities of local self-governance authorities and maybe other spheres, to introduce some support. But as for the communal enterprises, yes, I'll need to come back to this question as well. Yes, I would like to thank you for the reasonable questions about the exceptions and introduction of amendments to the grant projects. I began my speech with an active analysis what can be improved according to the previous waves. If you have such an opportunity, of course, I will write it down, but still, if you have an opportunity, could you send the list to the Ministry of Economy? We are registering all of the offers like these and considering them. So where should they write to? Because if they write to the ministry, oh, you can write to me personally. Tetiana has a wonderful page in Facebook. Just write in her messenger and she will definitely answer. Sometimes we communicate like that as well, because we don't have any other format left. I totally support, I'm open for communication, so I thank you for the offer, and I'd like to emphasize, I'm looking at the map with the successful grant applications, and in Sumy region we have 25 successful grant applications, in Chernihiv 9, in Mykolaiv 3, in Zaporizhia 19. So Poltava and Dnipropetrovsk region have 68 and 80. So still, don't lose hope and apply for the grant programs. Tetiana, seems this question is for you. Dina Shevchenko, Mykolaiv community, Mykolaiv Hromada from Mykolaiv region. She's speaking about the registration of industrial parks during the martial law. Do we have such registration at all? Yes, the registration is ongoing. We verify the documents. Recently, we had several decrees of the Cabinet of Ministers about the registration of the new industrial parks. So yes, the tax exempts and the encouragement of entrepreneurship is taking place, including the registration of the regional parks. Thank you, Tetiana. We don't have any questions left. Oh, we have? Could you please show the one who would ask the question? We have the hand risen. Unfortunately, I don't see who exactly has the question. Could you please introduce yourselves? Olena Sydorenko. I have such an offer for all of the participants. We are representing the project which has been introduced today already. We are now dealing with the relocation of the businesses, and we have the information dialogue platform, Business Under Conditions of War. Relocation and restoration. So we are working under the patronage of the Ministry of Economy, and we are really grateful for the wonderful cooperation. We are really feeling the help for the businesses and the participants. I'd like to urge the communities, give to your businesses, as I wrote in the chat, the name of our enterprise. We have the information dialogue platform once per month where the business can be involved. So we had the wonderful 2-hour meeting where the representatives of the Ministry of Economy were specifically telling how the grant support programs are functioning for the smaller businesses, about 250,000, and for the processing enterprises, about 8 million. So you could understand how to get requests, and the representatives from the ministry were listening and hearing the businesses about grants and had some issues. We will go on implementing this idea at least till the end of the year. The channels, the Telegram channels are working. So the business can be involved under the name The Help for the Business Under the Conditions of War, Relocation and Restoration. I think it will be useful for your communities. That's what I'd like to share as my experience and invite you for the participants. We thank you. We have Mykolaiv community. Could you show the representative? Who's the representative of Mykolaiv community? Mykolaiv community, Dnipropetrovsk region. Do you hear us? Yes, we hear you. Could you please introduce yourselves? We're listening to you. Marina Zvitkova, project manager of Mykolaiv community, Sinelnikov district, Dnipropetrovsk region. We really thank for the state programs. We have the success stories already. A wonderful guy won the grant, which is not that big, 250,000, 3 job places. But this is how we are starting up the production of flour in our community. So the guy already had new wings grown. We are filled with wish to work on. Thank you. Thank you, that was really nice. That is really, we are happy to listen to such feedback. It is motivating. We wish success to the representatives of your community. So, as for the flour, that is very important. Could you analyze that in your community? Where are you bringing the flour from? And I'm speaking to other communities now. We used to have lots of mills. It is such a cool business where you can create restoration and relaxation zones as well. You could have the electric stations as well. The flour, the grain processing, different cereals may look ridiculous because we were speaking about that last year. We had lots of grain storages, we had railway carriages, and now we can see how vulnerable it can become. So whether we like it or not, but today we are speaking about decentralized economy. If the decentralization of the power, authorities and resources was not finalized, but we saw its efficiency already, today getting these resources, both the nature ones and other ones, then you need to get into economy, the decentralized one, the smaller one. You don't need to get into bigger holdings which are breaking your roads. You don't need to construct any of the space shuttles. With the usual simple things, with the things which you're buying today at the market or anywhere else which are brought from other countries, whether this is the tool or maybe some attire or clothes or maybe potato chips or maybe something dried or boiled, I don't know what. You can just provide yourselves with the most necessary points and then export it. I think that you need to have the spark in the eye for that. I'm so happy to listen to the village heads, how they are speaking today about the local economy. I said already that several years ago, no one was speaking about that, because the village and city heads were just landlocked with their own settlements. They had only some farm beyond the oblast, and that's it. These were district and rayon administrations which were dealing with that, but gradually they were deteriorating. Now you got everything in your own hands, so use it. Just use it, because you know, when the person has the land lot of 20 hectares, he or she takes care about each of the bushes. The same about you. The local self-governance representatives at each of the square meters of the land, you need to create economy there. You need to provide economic security and to make your own business, job places, and to fill the budget. This is your task. We will definitely inspire you for this topic and help you in that. I think this is the wonderful final point, because this example of Mykolaiv community of Dnipropetrovsk region is about the economic development of the communities and flour, because this is economic security. And the pancakes, sure. This is the end of our discussion as of today. Thanks to the program of HOVERLA and the Ministry of Development of Communities and Territories, we were able to hear lots of useful information. We do hope you'll be able to use it in your activities. As a moderator, I will try to tell you about the very easy home assignment. Dear communities, think how much time you spend on the creation of the institutions which are dealing with the local economic development, which would prepare the strategies of the development and investment projects, which would involve investments and prepare the projects for the participants in the state programs. Think on that. And remember that we need to create this economy together as we do that at the front line.